This lake had belonged to my family for generations. I never imagined that one day I would look across it and see an entire neighborhood. Then construction crews appeared along the shoreline. At first, I thought they were building a few private homes. That was when the HOA president announced their big development plan. 37 luxury villas were going up around my family's lake. They had designed 37 villas in a tight cluster around the water. The plan looked beautiful on paper, but the lake was my family's property. I confronted Victoria directly about the development. She insisted everything would work out and told me not to worry. Then the water level began dropping. Week after week, more of the lake bed appeared. While the lake disappeared, the villas kept rising. Soon, the HOA's 37 homes were almost finished. For the first time in my life, I could walk across parts of the lake. It felt impossible to see that much land where water had always been. Then the weather changed. Heavy rain began falling across the hills, feeding the reservoir. And then the water came back. What had been a cracked lake bed only days earlier was filling again. The lake was returning to its old boundaries. The villas suddenly looked very different from the original plans. The HOA board finally realized how quickly the water was returning. Their confidence disappeared almost overnight. I went back through my family's old records. The original lake boundaries were clearly marked on decades-old maps. The old maps showed something important. The water had always reached much farther than the new development plan suggested. Victoria came to speak with me personally. This time, she wasn't celebrating the development. I showed her the historical boundaries and explained what the returning water meant. She finally understood why I had been concerned from the beginning. The finished villas now sat beside a lake that looked almost exactly like the old photographs. The entire landscape had changed. The residents were stunned by how beautiful the restored lake looked. But beauty wasn't the only thing they had to think about. The HOA called an emergency community meeting. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. I explained the lake's history to the entire room. The water wasn't doing something unexpected. It was returning to a familiar pattern. By the end of the meeting, the mood had completely changed. We finally had everyone looking at the same facts. Over the following days, the water level stabilized. The lake finally looked peaceful again. I walked the shoreline just like my grandfather had done decades earlier. For the first time in months, everything felt familiar again. The HOA began revising its plans around the natural lake conditions. This time, the water was part of the conversation from the beginning. The community adapted to the lake instead of pretending the lake didn't exist. That simple change made all the difference. I stood on the dock that evening and looked across the water. The lake had come back, and with it came a piece of my family's history. The old photographs in the new neighborhood now told the same story. The landscape had changed, but the lake remained. From above, you could finally see the whole picture. 37 villas stood beside a lake that reclaimed its place in the landscape. I learned that land can change faster than people expect. But when you understand its history, you can make better decisions about its future. The HOA built 37 villas beside my family's lake. Then the water came back, and everyone finally understood why the lake mattered. If you enjoyed this HOA story, like and subscribe, and tell me where you're watching from.